be speaking on from Joshua, and it's like a summary from the book of Joshua. And whatever, if somebody asks who Joshua is or what the book of Joshua is, he is a person who was after Moses. He was the biggest leader. So he's a person who has to fill the shoes of Moses, and his leadership should be like as equal or as good as Moses. So he is a person whom the whole Israel camp looks forward or looks up to. When we talk about how successful Joshua's leadership was, we can talk about from John chapter 17, verse 12. You don't have to turn. Jesus said that I have not lost anyone except the son of perdition. So success is measured nowadays by money, or success is measured by what your standard is, or what you have achieved in life. But success is also measured by what you have not lost. Okay, fulfilling the responsibilities that you are given. So here we see that Joshua successfully took transition from Moses into the promised land. Also, when we see the parable of talents, the master gave somebody 5, master gave somebody 2, and master gave somebody 1. And the talents were multiplied by the person who had 5 talents and the person who had 2 talents. But the person who had 1 talent could not or did not multiply it, although he feared the Lord, although he knew how the Lord was, although he knew how important it was for the talent to be multiplied. So not only we have to fulfill the task, we also have to make sure that we multiply what we have been given to us. So in Joshua's life, we will see obedience, faithfulness, and how he had great faith. When we talk about Joshua, the first thing that he is mentioned about is in Exodus chapter 17 and verse 8 to 16. Here we see that Joshua led the fight. The Amalekites came and attacked, and Joshua came and fought and led the fight against Amalekites. Can we read that?
The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Now Amalek came and Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. And here Moses is standing on the hill. We know the story that Moses is standing on the hill, and Joshua is the one who has gone and led the battle out against Amalek. And when Joshua gets tired, he is made to sit on a stone, and Aaron and Hur, they stand and hold up his hand. Because when the battle was going on, till the time Moses was holding up up his hands, up the rod, Joshua or the Israelites were winning. And as soon as, because when he gets tired, he was putting his hand down, they started to lose. So Aaron and Hur made him sit on a stone, put up his hands, and each held his hand. So that is how we see how Joshua was. And in verse 10, it says, Joshua did as Moses said to him. Okay, so that is obedience from Joshua. In Exodus 24:13, we see that Joshua was the apprentice. Exodus 24:13. We see that Joshua was apprentice or his assistant. And when Joshua went up to Moses went up to the mountain, Joshua went partway to the mountain. And this is the mountain at which the tablets were given to Moses. And when he's coming down, he hears the people worshipping the golden calf. And of course, he is angry. So when he comes down, it is actually Joshua who heard that calf, that worship first. And he says that this is a people in chapter 32, verse 17.
And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There is a noise of war in the camp."
And 18. Next verse.
But he said, "It is not the noise of the shout of victory, nor the voice of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear."
So this Joshua, when he was accompanying Moses, he is the one who heard the people of the Israel singing to the golden calf. So he is like an assistant to Moses, and he was a person who was like we called the mentee, and Moses was the mentor. And when we see, he was also in Numbers 12, in 24 to 29. Numbers 12, 24. Okay, I will come to what I wanted to say. So there was a time in when there was a prophecy among the people of Israel, and the Lord put that the prophets. The Lord asked Moses to put the spirit of prophecy, and there were 72 people who were prophesying in the tabernacle. But out of the 72 people, this 70 people were in the tabernacle and 2 people were in the camp. And there was some people who reported that these 2 people are not in the tabernacle but in the camp, and they are prophesying. So Joshua said, "Let me go and correct them." Okay? Let me go and correct them. And at that time, Moses said, "Are you let them worship or let them prophesy wherever they are, and let them do not be zealous for me." Okay, so Moses kind of corrected Joshua's zeal in that verse. And so what I wanted to say was that when someone is correcting you or telling you that you are going in the wrong direction, so be humble enough to be corrected, even and understand their point of opinion. In Numbers chapter 13, people brought a evil report. Numbers chapter 13, verse 32. So when the Israelites sent out spies to spy out the land of Israel, there were 12 spies that went, and only Joshua and Caleb were giving the good report, and there were 10 spies who were bringing the bad report. And they said in verse 32, Numbers 13:32.
And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature."
There we saw the giants, okay, and they were people, they thought that they were like grasshoppers in our own sight, okay. So they gave a false report, and Joshua and Caleb said, "No, we can go and fight them." But the rest of the 10 people said, these people are giants and we cannot fight them. So in chapter 14, next verse, we see that the all congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and people wept that night. And next verse it says, "And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, 'If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?' So they said to one another, 'Let us select a leader and return to Egypt.'" So people are murmuring and complaining against Moses and Aaron, and saying that our lives in Egypt was better. So let us select another leader and go back. And here Moses and Aaron, in the next verse, they fell and only wanted the Lord to intervene. At that time, Joshua and Caleb, they rose up, they rent their clothes and said, "Trust the Lord." No? They said in verse 7, Joshua and Caleb spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land and give us to us a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread, and their protection has departed from them. And the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. So Joshua and Caleb challenged the 10 people, the majority, saying that you do not listen, do not look at what the Amalekites look like, or do not think yourself as grasshoppers, because their defense has left them, and they are like bread to us. So Joshua, although when he was not a big leader, he was full of faith. He was obedient and he was faithful. Then we see that Joshua was declared and publicly set as a leader by the Lord and by Moses. And Moses, whenever he will encourage Joshua, he said, do not fear, do not be dismayed. And even in when the Lord spoke to him in Joshua chapter 1, the Lord encouraged Joshua by the same words. Do not be afraid. Be strong and courageous. In Joshua chapter 1, he says, in verse 3, he says, every place the sole of your foot will go, I will give it to you. Joshua chapter 1, verse 3 onwards. He says, every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moses. In verse 5, it says, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and be of good courage. For to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. So that is his task. His task is, do not be fear, do not be afraid, and divide the land. That is his task. So, also in verse 8, he says, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate it day and night, so that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. So this is the key for Joshua's success, that he was meditating from the word of God. In Psalm 1 also we see, blessed is the man who meditates on the word day and night. He'll be like a tree that is planted by the riverside, giving fruits in its season. Okay? And now we are so much talking about Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Similarly, at the time when Joshua was entering the promised land, except Joshua and Caleb, the whole generation has passed out. Only Joshua and Caleb is the only generation people who had an idea of what Egypt was. The other people have no idea what Egypt was. They are totally new generation. What do they see every day? They see manna falling down from heaven. They see pillar of cloud and pillar of fire. They have no idea that they were once slaves. They have a hope of a promised land. And they have seen supernatural victories. These people are people, when Joshua in Joshua chapter 2, spies were sent by Joshua to spy the land. These people all gave a good report. They said that the people of the land are greatly afraid for what God has done. Their report is not that the people are great, but people are giants. Their report is that the people are sorely afraid of us. These people have totally different, outlook to life. And as we see that now everything is mobile, everything is photographs, memory. Joshua also took something for memory. When the people crossed the river Jordan, Joshua was asked to go and step into the river waters.
One thing is, this river was overflowing at that time. Okay, the river, you know, in God will never give you an easy task. When Elijah was worshipping in front of the prophets of Baal, all the prophets of Baal were cutting themselves and worshipping, try to worship Baal. And they asked the god of Baal to light their fire. But Elijah poured water into the sacrifice, into the altar. So much water that the moat was full. And then he prayed and the fire came down. So God will not, like God is not a God that will do something less for us. Similarly, when they were about to cross Jordan, the river was overflowing. The banks were overflowing. And all they had to do, the priests were to do was to step. And as soon as they stepped, the water stood. One side of the water, it stood. And it says that behind it went and stood like a wall. So for memory, Joshua took the stones from the place where priests were standing, and God asked him to bring and put the stones. And these stones were big stones, and carried on the shoulders. I had an incident in which we had a patient when I was in Hyderabad. This patient was pretty sick, and we had tried a long, so that he could survive. And we had done multiple surgeries as well. But he could not survive. Before his death, he was not a local patient. He was from some far place from Andhra. Before his death, his granddaughter came and took a selfie with him. I could not understand at that time, why she took selfie. She was about 13, 14 years. I couldn't understand why she took a selfie. And I thought that better than that, she could have told some good memories or something nice to him. But later on, I understand that this is a memory for her. Although he was sick, but she wanted a piece of that sickness, or she wanted a piece of him to be remembered. So similarly, we also take photographs, or Gen Z takes photographs or videos or makes whatever. But here we see that the stones were taken and taken as a monument. When the Israelites came and saw the Red Sea, they were murmuring. They were fighting. They were saying, why did Moses brought us here? In this camp, in this generation, there was no murmuring. There was no fear. They were ready to step in, to go ahead. In Joshua, we also read about of many supernatural events. One of them is the parting of the river Jordan. Also, we see the angel of the Lord. In Joshua chapter 5, there is a portion where Joshua encounters the angel. And he does not go and fight with him. He says, who are you? And he says, are you with me, or are you with the enemy? Okay. And we also see the fall of Jericho. The wall, a strong wall, fell down. This is a wall on top of which a house is built. Okay. And the wall fell down just by people walking around it and shouting and blowing trumpets. We also see in Joshua 10 that when Joshua was fighting the enemies, the Israelites were fighting the enemies, hailstones came down and killed the enemies. Okay, Joshua 10:11. Now I'm afraid to tell the verses. Joshua 10:11. It says, and it happened as they fled before Israel and were on the descent of Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven on them, as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Israel killed with the sword. So they saw supernatural works. They saw in Joshua chapter 10, further down, the sun stood still And the moon stopped till the people had, in verse 13, till the people had revenge upon their enemies. So we saw so many supernatural things in the book of Joshua as they were entering. We also see Rahab. This is also a kind of a supernatural thing for a male-dominated society to accept a prostitute to just because she honored God and stood for God. But in Joshua, we also see something about a hidden sin. In Joshua chapter 7, as Jericho fell, there's a family and there was a person, Achan, who saw something very, very tempting, and he took that thing and hid in his camp. But the chapter starts as chapter 7 starts that, but the children of Israel committed a trespass. So it shows that our hidden sin can affect a community, can affect a church, can affect the nation. And the result of what happens when Israel committed a trespass because of one person, Israel lost the war with us by a small against a small country. And Joshua rent his clothes and he's asked the Lord for forgiveness and Lord for wisdom. And then when they cast the lots, the lot falls, and it falls on the tribe and then on the family, and then finally it lands on this particular family. And in verse 19 and 20, how Joshua approaches this family. In Joshua 7 verse 19. Now Joshua said to Achan, my son, I beg you, give glory to the Lord God of Israel and make confession to him, and tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. So even when he's confronting somebody who has caused a lot of people of Israel to be dead, and specifically asking, Joshua had asked them not to take anything from Jericho as a spoil, but still he addresses him as my son. Okay. The other problem that we see is in Joshua chapter 9 is the Gibeonites deceived Joshua. There was a set of people who came, who said that we know that, who thought among themselves that we will go and trick Israel so that they don't defeat us. So they tricked Joshua in saying that we are coming from afar off, although they were very near. And Joshua got tricked, and they ate with them. So in those times, if you are eating with somebody, if you are taking their salt, it is a big thing for them, and they cannot break the covenant with them. And in verse 14, Joshua did what he was not supposed to do. Joshua 9:14. It says, then the men of Israel took some of their provisions, but they did not ask counsel of the Lord. And so Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the rulers of the congregation swore to them. So here is a judgment error that Joshua did. And these are the only two mistakes that we could find in the life of Joshua. Also, there was how Joshua dealt with rumors was also very interesting. Once in chapter 22, it was found that the people of Reuben made another altar, and to confront them, Phinehas was a priest. He went and he confronted them, and when it was found that this altar was a true altar and was not against the Lord, and not for any other god, Phinehas accepts them, and this altar was taken later as a witness. So here we see how Joshua confronted a rumor, how Joshua confronted Achan, how Joshua accepted the Gibeonites also, although they made a treaty with him, God honored their treaty. Then in the end, we see Joshua divides the land, fulfilling what the Lord had planned for him, and honoring the word, honoring what Moses had promised. And there was, in between, there was another a family which did not have any male children. And Moses had made clause in the law and said that people who do not have male heirs or only daughters were also given a portion for small portion from the as inheritance. And Joshua honored that as well. And in the end, we'll see that Joshua took a smaller portion for his own family. And when in the end Joshua says about how towards his end of his life, Joshua in chapter 24 says that in 24 verse 15, 24 verse 14 and 15.
And if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Yeah, so Joshua in verse 14 also he says, now therefore fear the Lord, serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the river and in Egypt. Serve the Lord. And he says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So let this be our prayer, that although we've come from various backgrounds, but we should learn from Joshua how he was faithful and how he was faithful to the task that was given to him, how he was understanding that this generation is a different generation, and how he said that I will serve the Lord. Me and my family will serve the Lord. Be encouraged. Choose to serve the Lord. And even when he was a leader who was fighting the Amalekites, or he was a leader who was leading the battle, leading the Israelites, he was always faithful. So he was obedient. He did what he was told. He had a vision of how to follow the Lord, and he was he was a great man of faith. So I wish that, and I pray that this teaching be a blessing for you.
If today's sermon has blessed you and you would like to stay connected with our community and receive more inspiring messages, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll get access to latest sermons, Bible studies, and many more uplifting content. Let's stay connected and continue growing in our faith together. Subscribe now and join a community of believers seeking to deepen the relationship with God. May God bless you.